Hello, everyone. I'm a coordinator for the Environmental Technician program, and I'm sort of going to do sort of a run through of some common questions that we have about the program. And then, of course, we'll certainly open the field so that people can share any questions that they might have brought with us. So it is a co-op program. So that means it's 2 years in length. It only has one intake, which is in September. And the co-op is between the first year and the second year. So this makes this a diploma program. And generally, people think that that means everyone is coming directly from high school. That's not necessarily true. Our average age is actually probably closer to 23 or 24, and you'll have people coming at all different stages in their life. Can I get you to change the slide, Sherilyn? Thank you. I am emailable. My email is there, and essentially I can take questions if there are things that people have. Generally, what people are most interested in, people tend to come to this program usually because they are interested in being outside. That's true. We do have an outside component. And then we also balance that with indoor work, which would be what we call lab skills. And that's because, of course, we live in a country that has winter, and you are going to have something to do when you're not out in the field, perhaps all year round. And also, realistically, whatever work you're doing in the field, it's going to have to be balanced by indoor work as well. You're going to have to process all the information you have gathered. You're going to have to do something with the data. So the program is balanced essentially between inside things and outside things. I'm going to get Sherilyn to change for me again, please. Thank you. So why do people come here? Usually it has to do, sometimes they have a very strong idea of what it is they would like to do. Sometimes they know they're maybe a water person or a soil person. Sometimes they know somebody who works in the industry, and that's sort of given them an idea of what they're interested in. Sometimes they know somebody who works in a wastewater treatment plant. That's a very common stream. But what we are hoping is that you think a lot about the skills that you're going to need to be successful here. And one of those is obviously going to be a fairly strong foundation in science, particularly chemistry. So you might have noticed when you're looking at all of the programs that are available in colleges, it's fairly common for them to say that you need math and English coming out of high school, but it's not necessarily common for them to say that you require chemistry. And we definitely require chemistry. We have 3 chemistry courses in the program, one in the first term, one in the second term, one in the third term, and we have chemistry very tightly woven throughout all of our curriculum. So it's pretty important that you understand sort of how things work, that you're fairly comfortable working with numbers, and then you're able to start putting things together. Can I ask you to change it, please, Sherilyn? Yeah, so I was asked to talk about hands-on learning, and experiential learning is probably a term you're seeing a lot more often than you used to. The universities are starting to pick up on it. We are a college. We have always done hands-on, boots-on training. Our program is hybrid during the pandemic. Last year, we maintained all of our field activities and all of our lab activities. And what we did is we took our theoretical material online. So we were on campus continually throughout last year. And it's extremely important because how are you going to be trained in a practical program just staring at a computer screen? So we are going to continue to do that as we move forward. We have a campus. It's called Niagara-on-the-Lake, but it's actually much closer to St. Catharines. So it's just over the Skyway. The main buildings there, we're very close to the escarpment. There are some lagoons on campus. Our sister division is horticulture. So sometimes you'll see them out on campus with us as well. That also explains the greenhouses and some of the plant material that is growing there. So we do work on campus, and then we also go off campus as well to do activities. It is a co-op program, and I believe there's a session a little bit later on to give you more information around that. But basically, it's 350 hours. It occurs in your very first summer. And in order to qualify for that, of course, you have to be in good academic standing. Our co-ops are paid. And the reason that we do that is it's actually something that our employers think is important as well. You want to make sure that the people that are coming are committed to being there. and that everyone is sort of moving forward on the same page. So there is a co-op program, and then I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but there's often a very strong interest among some people who come to the program. They want to work either in wastewater treatment plants or drinking water treatment plants, because they understand that those are going to be things that we're always going to need. So we do have a course in our final term, which allows you to get your drinking water operator class 1. So there's 4 classes or 4 levels for wastewater and drinking water operators in the province. And this would be your exam that you would write for that. You would still, of course, need to work in actual practical component. And then we're also affiliated with the Ontario Association of Certified Engineering Technicians and Technologists. And it's a really good idea to apply for that when you're a student, and to get, because it's cheaper, and to get you thinking about sort of what are the certifying bodies for what we do, and how are those things connected. We do have graduate certificates at the college. We have one in ecosystem restoration and one in environmental management and assessment within our department. Some people choose to do those as well. So that would essentially be a 3rd year. It's not a direct connection. It's not like a technologist year. It's a totally different program. It was designed primarily for people coming out of university who have got the theoretical background, but they don't have the hands-on skills that they need to enter the job market. And so they come to us for sort of that 8 months, like a finishing school, so that they can better represent themselves to employers. And we do sometimes have our grads of the program, of the environmental technician program, who choose to do that as well. And then we do have educational pathways. So that's something that I think people are thinking a little bit about right now. So sometimes people come to college because university is very expensive and they're not sure maybe how they would do in 4 years. And what they are hoping is that if they do 2 years at a college and they're successful, then they would be able to transfer some of their credit to the university. And then they would eventually graduate with both a diploma with the hands-on component and then also with a university degree. And we're seeing that many universities are doing a much better job of cooperating with colleges and getting pathways where you'll be able to be recognized for the years of the credits and the work that you've already done at a college when you transfer to a university. And that's great because that makes things go a little bit quicker for everyone. So I'm supposed to be talking a little bit about the sorts of things that we do. So field experiences, I'm going to start off first of all. So first of all, if you come to the program, you need to understand that we're going to be outside and you're going to have field clothes. So that's going to be obviously things like waterproof boots because we're standing in streams. Waders are sometimes very helpful. Appropriate clothing, so you need to have sturdy footwear and out either rain or in the snow. We work with soil, we work with water primarily, at least in the first little while. And then we move on to some vegetation work. We have courses that focusing on surveying and mapping, understanding spatial skills and where you are. And so all of these things are going to have a theoretical component, but obviously you're also going to have to go outside to gather that information and to learn the skills that you need to have to document what you're seeing. So it's really important that people understand that there's going to be sort of a field component. Generally, that's what makes people very excited and interested in our program. But you're not just walking around on a pretty day, you're out there with a purpose, understanding what needs to be done and why you're there, how you're going to gather those samples so that they can be analyzed and that the data can actually mean something. So outdoors, we are outdoors quite a lot in pretty much all kinds of weather. Some people are very interested in working in labs, and you can see some images here from sort of some lab work, processing. I think they're doing some soil work there, and they're in a chemistry lab. So we do have 3 chemistry courses, as I've mentioned. We do have 2 labs on campus that our division uses. You are working in labs, understanding basically how to follow standard operating procedure, how to work safely in that environment, how to operate different types of machinery, how to follow basically good practices associated with being inside of a lab. And then that data that you're gathering, you're going to be using it to work with Excel spreadsheets or to write a report. So other things that you're seeing here, I think the microscope is a benefit course. So that's actually an interesting one where you're doing outside work. So you're gathering organisms that live in the bottom of streams. so insects and larvae, and you are bringing them into the lab and you're using, in this case, a stereo microscope to be able to identify them. And that gives you information which is a complement to the chemistry data that we get when we think about water quality. So essentially, if a stream has issues in it that makes it difficult for organisms to live there, then probably it's going to have some water quality issues. So you're going to see a lot of integration between our different courses. So I think sometimes when people look at our outlines, the courses that we have, you're going to see you're carrying 6 or 7 courses a term, and that is a lot actually. So time management is a really important skill to have. But once you get going, you're going to start seeing patterns and recognitions of how things are connected to each other. And I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. You are starting to recognize how things are related to each other and how common themes and skills are woven through things. And those are basically all skills that you're going to need to work in the industry. So that's laboratory or indoor experiences. So essentially, here's the curriculum. So we are indeed divided into 4 terms with a co-op term in the center. Some of these courses are required by the Ministry of Colleges and Training. Those would be things that you're very familiar with from your high school background, some communications courses and mathematics courses. There's also some gen eds here. And then you can see that we are covering a fairly wide range of things from chemistry and sampling analysis courses, things that are thinking about managing data, things that are focused on the soil, things that are focused on health and safety or laws and regulations related to the environmental industry, microbiology and toxicology, which would be another lab course, how water moves around and flows and how it can potentially be contaminated or not. That's a hydrology course. And then also some issues around air monitoring in the final term, which also includes noise, because that's actually an indoor air quality issue. So those are essentially the courses that we have, and you can definitely see it is a fairly busy schedule, and then that co-op term in the center. Yeah, so the co-op work term, for those of you who aren't familiar with them, lots of people are really interested in doing an educational program that has a co-op work term, just so that you get a really strong sense of what exactly the industry is. So again, I know they're going to talk a lot more about this in the future or in a session later on today, and you're going to have a chance to meet with Ali Weir, who's our co-op coordinator. But essentially, what you would like to get out of your co-op is it may not be your dream job, and I don't think that's necessarily the most important thing. It's a fairly short period of time out of your life, and you'd like to see it like. So make sure that you're understanding what you like and what you don't like, and getting a sense of which direction you might like to head in. And ideally getting a good recommendation from somebody and something that you can put on your resume as you start to sort of build those skills, which you're going to need when you begin to enter the job market. So co-op work term, that's, I think, probably the most important things I can say about that. They are sourced for you? I guess I could tell you that. Basically, they are all posted on a website, and people go in and they apply for the co-op terms that interest them. And then the industry employer will receive your resumes, and they will do interviews just like in a normal real job. And then they'll offer positions to those people that they're interested in. So it does very much mimic what it's like to apply for a job, a full-time job after you're done school. So we talked a little bit about pathways and articulation agreements. A couple of these are very new, so I'm not even terribly familiar with them. Royal Roads is in British Columbia. It has been a partner with us for a very, very long time. So taking our courses and then offering one of 3 different degrees in the environmental area. It's on a gorgeous campus. So should you happen to be interested in going to BC, it's definitely something that you might want to keep in mind. Griffith University has also been a partner with us for a very long time. It is in Australia, so obviously not everyone would necessarily like to go to Australia. And then 2 newer partners are Western, which is in London, Ontario, so definitely closer, and Trent University, which is a smaller university in Peterborough and has long been known for environmental programs. So thinking about if you're trying to sort of plan and think about issues that you could do and places that you could do in the future and how you could build on your diploma, sometimes it's helpful to be aware of some of the universities that already have articulation agreements, which just essentially means they're willing to accept credits and courses that we have done at equal value, and that will allow you to finish your university degree a little bit faster. So what can you do if you come to this particular area to study? Sometimes this is a bit of a tricky question. We are fairly broad-based, so it's not like, being a dental hygienist. Everyone knows what a dental hygienist does, and they all essentially do the same thing. But we tend to have people breaking out in different areas. And sometimes that has a lot to do with your interest level. So are you an indoor person? Are you an outdoor person? Are you a person that likes to have, a set schedule and structure, knowing that you're doing the same thing kind of day after day? Are you a person that likes a little bit more variability? And essentially the major streams that we have, lots of people enter the industry knowing that they would like to work in a drinking water or a wastewater treatment plant. And that's because those tend to be jobs with municipalities, they're unionized, they're well paid, they are shift work. So some people like that, some people don't. So that's a stream that people are often very interested in. We also have people who are very interested in working in consulting. So that could be doing site assessments. It could be working with a consultant that does natural history work or inventories and surveys of birds or other fauna or plants, taking site samples. That tends to be really, really fast paced. You have a chance to do a lot of things, meet a lot of people, travel quite a lot. So that's an area that people are often interested in. We also have agencies, government agencies. So this would include municipalities. It would also include things such as conservation authorities that hire people specifically to do things like watershed monitoring. So that means you'd be working with a team of people. You would be returning to sites over and over again, data so that we have baselines and the ability to sort of determine when an impact has happened in a system. Some of those jobs have very strong outreach components. So you're working with the community, maybe landowners, maybe other interested parties. Sometimes you're doing education campaigns, sometimes you're working with kids, sometimes you're promoting programs for things like tree planting. You're working with farmers, trying to do things like get cattle out of the stream. We also have people who are specifically working in labs. So sometimes that's an interest with people. They know they want to go to the same place every day, have a set structure, things that they do. They like the precision associated with that. So they're working with a lab that could be testing basically any type of environmental sample that comes in. So those are also options for people. Some people, again, if you have a very strong computer background, you might be working in GIS and doing mapping and presenting data that way. You might also be doing data, which is a component of working with all of these numbers that people come up with. So it's good that there's lots of different ways that you can go. It's also sometimes a little bit hard to narrow down what it is that you might be interested in and what direction you would like to follow. We always get asked this question, where are people working and how much money are they making? And it's not always easy to answer that question because that would require that somebody calls me and tells me. And that doesn't always happen. But I did a quick little check through my LinkedIn for today so that we could get some logos up for you and just give you some sort of ideas of what these kinds of places look like. So the first one I'm going to talk about is consulting. So there are lots and lots and lots of consultants that work in the environmental area. And that's because we have developments going on everywhere, and somebody is going to be responsible for making sure environmental laws are being followed and the processes that are in place for development to happen, the data is being gathered and presented and organized. So a fairly large consultant would be Golder and Associates. Woods PLC is also a fairly large one as well. They'll have offices in many places across Canada, some close to us. Natural Resources Solution is an example of a smaller company, which again, as you can see, focuses primarily on aquatic and wetland areas, and they do a lot of biology work. And then another stream that people can potentially be interested in is working for a government organization. So a government organization could be something like the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, which you might not have thought of as a place that hires environmental people, but they do, because they're not just responsible for food safety, they're also responsible for all pests and diseases that might come into the country and might have an impact on our food production or our lumber industry. So they're concerned about things like emerald ash borer or diseases that can impact our forestry or our food industry. So that's also a potential place. They also usually give us a co-op every year too. And then conservation authorities, of which there are over 30 in the province. They're organized and they're watershed based. So they essentially are doing projects within their watershed. Again, in many cases, a combination of data collection and project implementation and working with landowners. And then, of course, every municipality, whether it's something like a city, so the city of Richmond Hill or the city of St. Catharines or a region of Niagara, they are hiring people to work in their environmental departments, also do a lot of community outreach in many cases, wastewater treatment operators as well. So all of these cities are going to be responsible for managing solid waste, managing liquid waste, and someone is going to have to take care and do those particular types of things. Industries as well that create waste are going to have somebody tracking it, documenting it, measuring it, treating it. All of those things are possible. And then the last one is NGOs, so environmental non-governmental organizations. So people working for Ontario Streams, which is a local organization that essentially does remediation projects on streams. They might look at fish habitat, impacts on the streams of water quality and its ability to support aquatic life. So there are indeed lots of options in many different places for people to head into if you think that you have a strong scientific background, you like being outside, you like solving problems, which I think is really what most of what it is that we do. How do we have people who can gather the information that's required to solve many of the problems?
Okay, there is a question. If I'm pronouncing your name wrong, Ayana, I'm terribly sorry. So Ayana is asking, how many people are accepted into the program?
So our program runs in 2 sections. So each of those about 24 or 25 people. So usually there's about somewhere between 45 and 50 people in the program. And then in a normal year, your lecture components, you have those together. And then in order to break you into smaller groups to be in a lab safely and efficiently or to be outside, then you'd be broken into sections for those. So you are usually with about 20 to 24 people as sort of your core cohort.
Perfect, thank you. If you have any other questions, again, please use the Q&A tab. I'm sure you've mentioned this earlier, Andrew. I don't know if you mind repeating this again. How are classes being delivered right now for this program?
No, that's a good question. So we have been a hybrid the entire time. We have never stopped doing our, none of the programs in our department have given up our field activities or our lab activities. We've maintained all of them. We're going to continue to be at least hybrid and hopefully full face-to-face stuff next term, as long as we're allowed to do that. So we're planning for full sort of back into the classroom for most things this January. So hopefully next fall we'll be able to say that as well. But we would never do fully online because it's just not possible. We need you to be training you and to be doing things, and you actually need to be doing things. I think it's really important that you think about what you would like to do, that you survey all the program options available to you, and that you really get something that's a good match for you. And not just in terms of the academics, but also in terms of the location. So we're in a fairly small community, so you know that sometimes people like that, sometimes they don't. So those are all things that you have to think a little bit about, because you're going to be spending 2 years of your time here. It's pretty intense, and you want to make sure you really pick something that's a nice match for you. So thank you everyone for dropping in today. Good luck as you sort out sort of your next phase, and perhaps we'll see some of you next year. Bye everyone.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Andrea. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Carolyn.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye.